Okay, suggestions for the Trump administration part two. Uh, Working from home. Now, everybody likes working from home, but I think that there's plenty of evidence that people don't work from home quite as well as they work from an office, which is why I have an office. This isn't my home because I get a lot more done in here than I get when I'm at my house. Now, a lot of the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office examiners get to work from home. And in 2012, there was quite a scandal about some of them overstating the hours they were actually working. So USPTO might want to look at exactly who you're going to let work from home and whether you're going to pay them by the hour or by the piece handled. So you might want to say, well, we'll give you a flat rate of $500 for examining a patent application or something like that. Anyway, not my dog, in the immortal words of Peter Sellers from, I think it was Revenge of the Pink Panther, probably the funniest section of a movie I've ever seen, where he walks in and he asks the man, does your dog bite? And then the receptionist says no, and Peter Sellers reaches down as the Pink Panther to pet the dog. The dog basically bites and tears his coat off. He says, I thought you said your dog doesn't bite. The little man says, it's not my dog. Anyway, so USPTO employees, it's not my dog, but just some suggestions. All right, okay, we're on number four. Number four is remuneration rights. Now, when inventors invent something, sometimes they're under a contract, and the contract says basically you're supposed to invent. And so we're not going to give you any bonuses if you happen to invent something that's super useful. But it's kind of like in professional sports. If you're a coach and your quarterback has just thrown 7 touchdown passes with no interceptions, and you come out to the press conference afterwards and somebody says, well, what did you do for your quarterback? You know, the coach can say, wow, I was really impressed. I gave him a game ball and I gave him a gift certificate to eat at his favorite restaurant. We really appreciate the guy. That sounds a lot better than a coach who'd say, he gets paid to throw touchdown passes, so that's what he did. He just earned his keep. That's my best Bill Belichick impersonation. Anyway, the quarterback who gets appreciated is probably going to want to throw 7 touchdown passes the next game, whereas the one who understands that throwing 7 touchdown passes is just part of his salary, that's what he's expected to do, he may not be so motivated. So I would suggest that companies offer their inventors a percentage, even if it's a small percentage, like 0.5%, 0.25% of all the profits that are a result of their invention, in addition to their salary to invent. I mean, if you're a software engineer and you happen to make a meaningful contribution to one of Microsoft's patents, I mean, 0.25%, that could be some serious money in the long run. So anyway, this would open up a can of worms in that who decides whether to pursue the patent application and how enthusiastically to pursue it? Is it the company? Does the employee have the right? If the company decides not to pursue a patent on his or her idea, does the employee have the right to step in and say, I'll pay for the patent attorney, but now I want 5% of all the net profits from my invention. You company, you can own the invention, but I want 5% now instead of 0.25%. I mean, is that going to be fair? Probably. The company's not going to do anything with it. Okay, government subsidized inventor assistance. Now, a lot of countries in the world have very heavy government subsidies for inventions and companies that are at the cutting edge. That's really good for people in those countries, because the inventors can sometimes get everything paid for by the government if the government thinks that it's a good invention. For example, China. The Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese Army, which is called called the People's Liberation Army, they have considerable ownership interests in a whole lot of companies. And so when they pump money into one of these companies to help inventors invent things, you know, it's kind of from our perspective, it's an uncomfortable blend of the government and private enterprise, kind of like we in the United States, we try to avoid combining church and state. So It's not super clean, but I certainly think it would be a good idea if the U.S. government would get more actively involved in setting up incubators and think tanks and things like that for inventions, and to really target the mom and pop inventors, because these are the ones who really need the money. For them, a few $1,000s for a provisional application, that could be a couple months of rent for them. And so I would really like to see the government target more investment money toward the less financially well-off inventors. So how can you get this done? Well, one idea would be to encourage patent attorneys who've been around for long enough to kind of know what they're doing to donate some of their time on a pro bono basis. Pro bono means you don't get paid for it. Toward some of these, let's call them small think tanks, small incubators, and then allow them to write a fair hourly rate off of their taxes. That'd be a great way to get some experienced patent attorneys to help out some of these folks who probably couldn't afford these experienced patent attorneys without some sort of help. The other thing you might want to do with these incubators is, again, bring in some experienced patent attorneys who'd look over the invention, look over the prior art search, and decide whether or not the inventor really has a reasonable shot at getting a patent on it. And again, if you'd ask us to volunteer and then be able to write off what would be a fair hourly rate for our time off taxes, I think there'd be a lot of us who'd volunteer to do that. Last but not least, let's start incorporating AI into prior art searches and perhaps even invention assessments. I think we're almost there. So Elon, Bill, Jeff, I guess we're all on a first name basis with you guys, Mark. Perhaps you could figure this out. Elon, I just saw a video of you telling Joe Rogan that you think within 5 to 10 years, work is going to be optional, and that robots are going to be able to do everything so much better than humans and faster that we'll all live a decent life, and some of us wouldn't even have to work. I personally, I don't know what I'd do with myself if that happened. So please don't have your robots take over patent prosecution. I'd kind of like to be able to keep my job for a while. But yeah, why don't you guys figure out how to incorporate AI into at least the prior art searches, and perhaps even doing an assessment of an invention, comparing it to the prior art, and giving us perhaps a percentage number that would give us an idea of whether this invention is patentable. And perhaps if you really use your AI well, you could assess the potential market and what kind of profitability it might have. So anyway, these are my suggestions. Donald, JD, Alexandria, Marjorie, yeah, you're not doing anything much. You just resigned from Congress. Why don't your people can call my people and we can do lunch or something like that. Actually, I don't have people, but I'm sure you have my cell phone on speed dial. So just give me a call and we can talk over these ideas. And if you don't call me, it's like I'll be kind of insulted, but I'm sort of used to that. You don't respond to the letters I write about policies, so I probably can't expect a phone call either. But anyway, hopefully one of you will at least look at this and think that, gee, this could be a way that we could get American innovation back on track and perhaps compete with some other countries that are taking this a bit more serious than we are.